In this week's podcast, Ethan and I are talking all about our favourite series from 2020 that you can watch in 2021. You'll find a great variety of series here, from comedy, animations, thrillers, and historical dramas, so there's definitely something for everyone. And as always, if you head on over to our Instagram at reallife.english, we have some bonus series for you there as well. So if you'd like to know for additional series that you can watch this year, head on over there as soon as you finish watching or listening to this podcast.
All right, Andrea, I'll let you do the honors of picking the first one that we're going to talk about.
So the first one we're going to talk about is The Crown, and we're both fans of this series. And just thinking about what we were just discussing, this is a British English one. So if you'd like to learn about the British English accent maybe, then it's a great one, because you're going to learn like how the royal family speak, as well as others, because there's lots of different topics and historical events that have happened throughout the series. So it's a really great one as well to learn about history, because although it's not completely accurate, obviously some elements will have been changed, or maybe dramatized to make it more interesting. It does, go from the history of when Queen Elizabeth II came into power and lots of key events that happened throughout the years.
Yeah, I absolutely love this one. And it's one definitely that I did not think that I would like, because I really never had like any interest in the royal family or anything. And I thought it was something maybe to me, it seems, as an American, I think especially, it seems like something that's really outdated to have a monarch and everything. And I think us Americans were very anti kings and queens and anti dictators and things like this, because the whole country was founded on becoming independent from the crown. But I was completely surprised, because I think that this series, it's so interesting actually seeing what the role of the queen is, which I think she has much harder work, and she's been alongside every single prime minister since she came to power, and informed so many decisions that were made, and helped to like really guide and I think to inspire the British people through a lot of really difficult times. So I love history and everything, and I think kind of seeing it through the lens of what the Queen was doing during all these different times has been absolutely fascinating for me. And also I think it's really, really interesting, because as an American, I'm getting to learn a lot about some different British English, and especially that the Queen's English, as it's called. And I find that absolutely fascinating, like the way of pronouncing different words and even some of the expressions they use. I think there's some expressions that even I would have thought maybe were a little bit informal, but that they will use in this series.
Yeah, it is completely fascinating, and I love mimicking them as well. I just like to practice speaking the way the Queen does, because it's so different to how anyone else speaks. And what I loved about the most recent season 4, was that it's kind of coming up to more events that I remember as well, like with Princess Diana. And I grew up in a household that was very pro Princess Diana and everything, so it was really interesting to see how these things were depicted, so that you have more of a clear view of both sides as well, so that you're less biased.
That's true. And it almost lets you see behind the curtain, we might say, right?
Yeah, exactly. And I think the actors are amazing, and I'm so excited for the next 2, because there will be 2 more seasons as well. That's the great thing. If you haven't watched it, you've got 4 to catch up on, and then you've got 2 more to come. And again, it's coming into the 90s, so maybe things that you remember or things that are happening now. Like, I wonder if they're going to talk about the whole Meghan Markle and Prince Harry, leaving and moving to Canada and then America. And it'll just be really interesting to see how they show that.
I suppose they could even get Meghan Markle to play herself, right?
Yeah, maybe she would want to.
So I think that's a really fantastic one if you're wanting to discover British culture. If you have that doubt, like we were talking about, I think this is a really great place to jump into it. And I've absolutely loved that aspect of the series.
And just to mention, we do actually have a really great lesson on Learn English with TV series, which is the Queen's Speech. So it was actually requested, I think it won one of our polls on YouTube. And we actually used the original speech that the Queen made, but also the one from The Crown as well. So if you are a fan of the series and you haven't seen that lesson, it's a great one.
Fantastic. So what is the second one, Andrea?
So the second one is Dead to Me.
This is another one that both of us watched this last year, right?
Yes, and this one's on Netflix as well. And I think, have there been 2 or 3 seasons? I can't remember now. I think
it was 2. I think the third one is going to be coming out this year, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah. It stars Christina Applegate, who I really love. She's been in lots of things that I've watched over the years. And I think she's a producer as well of it.
Oh, it could be.
Yeah.
One of the things that I love is like that she and I don't know the other actress's name, but that they play such like opposing characters, that they're complete opposites, but they kind of like in the series they become best friends and they end up like living together. But it's a very strange premise, isn't it?
It is. It's a hard one to talk about, I think, without like giving anything away or giving out any spoilers for people. But maybe we can describe the first part, I guess, where Christina Applegate's husband is killed in a car accident, and then she meets this lady who becomes her friend, and she was kind of involved in the whole thing, and there's a lot of drama involved. There's quite a few scary moments as well, I think. I think even in season 2, it gets better, it gets more dramatic, like it has you on the edge of your seat as well in a way.
Great expression for this. What does that mean?
So it means like you want to see what's going to happen next. Like you can't just sit still and relax and watch it. Like you're waiting there, waiting to see what happens.
Yeah, you can think of someone like literally sitting on the edge of their seat, like trying to get closer to the TV to see what's going to happen, right?
Exactly.
And we said before also the word premise. What is that? That's like one that you might use a lot when you're talking about series or movies. Like what's the premise of this series or what's the premise of this movie? What does that mean?
So like the storyline, what it's all about.
So I think that's a really useful one because since there's like so many series out there, especially I think one of the causes of there being more and more series is like now before we just had like Netflix, and now there's also Prime, and HBO has come out with their own platform this year. So we're seeing all of these great series coming out, but I think they have to have like more and more bizarre premises and stuff so that it's not something that people feel like they've already seen.
Definitely. I think that's why on our list there's such a range of things that you can watch. So there's definitely something for everyone.
Wouldn't it be great if there was some way to understand real English without getting lost and without getting bored? Well, now there is. With our Real Life Native Immersion course, we will take you on a 41-week real-life adventure of the English language, each week exploring a different topic connected to our goal to help you understand and use real native English and make it a permanent part of your life in a way that is fun, natural, and convenient. The best part is you can try it for free with our 3-part Power Learning series. We will send it to your email. Just go to reallifeglobal.com/pod. That's POD to sign up. Now let's get back to today's podcast lesson. So maybe the next one we could look at, it's one of my favorites definitely that I've been watching the last couple of years that also has a very bizarre premise. What's that one?
So it's Killing Eve, and I think I started watching this one a little bit late, but I did start watching it last year as well, and I've only seen the first 2 seasons, but it is fantastic. Like I absolutely loved it. I think the acting is amazing. I think it's so great because there's lots of different accents as well, so you're going to learn British, American, like Russian, English, like Villanelle, she's just so incredible, who basically is an assassin, and she does lots of different accents, and the amazing thing about her is that she's actually from Liverpool and you would never imagine that she is from Liverpool with the different characters that she plays in this show.
Right, yeah. I think that's one of the things that really blew me away is I imagine like the actress was Russian or something because the character is Russian, but she speaks like with a perfect French accent. In the last season, actually, I mean, she came to Barcelona, and there's a scene where she's speaking Catalan, which is the local language, and I know people from here were like flabbergasted hearing that she actually learned Catalan for that part.
Oh my gosh, I have to watch it. I didn't know she comes to Barcelona.
Really?
I'm going to watch it tonight now. Is that in season 3?
That's in the new season, yeah.
Oh, wow. I have to start watching it again. I didn't know that. That's so interesting.
I think that this one's, the characters are just like so fantastic and everything. And the other main character who is like a secret agent, I guess you could call her, that's that's living in London and works for, is it MI5?
Yeah, MI5 or MI6, one of those.
And what is MI5, MI6?
Yeah, so it's the Secret Service, basically, in the UK. So if you think of James Bond, he's a Secret Service agent as well.
But she's American, so it's kind of like these two characters you're hearing, like, and Jodie Comer, she'll also like do different. I think there's a lot of scenes where she speaks probably RP, like she speaks regular British English, right? But I know there's at least like one episode where she speaks with a Scottish accent.
Oh, I don't remember that one. Maybe I haven't seen it.
Maybe that's season 3 as well.
Yeah.
I can't quite remember.
Oh, wow. Yeah, she's absolutely amazing at it. And Sandra Oh as well, who plays the Secret Service agent, like she's great as well. She's a great actress. Like there's just so much tension and suspense within a lot of the episodes, and you know, you get to see a lot of places as well because they do travel around. So it's quite interesting to see that aspect as well.
That is a really cool part of it. So I think like anyone that likes a kind of like the cops and robbers kind of thing, like, you know, the good guy chasing after the bad guy, but it's more complicated than that, because I think most people really like the supposed bad guy who's Villanelle. And I think the other really interesting thing about it is that generally these roles are played by men. It's like usually like a male secret agent like James Bond, and like the bad guy is usually a man, right? And this one, both characters are female. So it gives kind of like a whole new spin, I think, on the genre.
Definitely. It's a great one to advocate for that for sure.
That one, I think, is like another one. I can't wait for season 4. It's one of the ones that I'm most looking forward to. But maybe just for time's sake, we'll move on to the next one. So Andrea, do you want to pick one off of your list?
Yeah, I'm wondering if we're going to get through them all, because once you start talking about them, it's so exciting. You really get into it. But another one that is absolutely fantastic is Ozark. And this is on Netflix as well. And it stars Jason Bateman. And he's basically like a financial planner, and he gets involved in like a money laundering scheme that goes bad. He wasn't actually initially aware of it. His partner kind of was involved in it with a Mexican drug cartel, and he moves his family to the Ozarks basically to like survive and actually try to stay alive. And I think it gets better with each season as well. The last one was incredible because like initially his family are so against it, and then what happens is his wife starts to get involved. You see how their characters change. You see this other place as well. Like you see the Ozarks. I'd never heard of them. I think they're in Missouri, this area in the States. And you could just kind of see how their life is totally turned around.
Yeah, it sounds a little bit like Breaking Bad. I mean, I haven't seen it. I've heard really great things from, I mean, I should probably add it to my list as well of series to watch. But it sounds like a little bit like that kind of thing, but it's like someone who is like a good, normal person somehow gets kind of like involved in a really criminal life, right?
Exactly. Yeah, it really is similar in that way. And I definitely recommend you watch it. I think if you're going to start something new, it has to be Ozark. I think, you know, you have to stick with it a bit at the beginning of the first season, because maybe it's a little bit slower, but it really gets better. It's definitely worth watching. That was something that like we really looked forward to during the first lockdown as well, because I think the new season came out during that period. So it was like, oh yeah, we can watch Ozark tonight, and it was something to look forward to.
Yeah, I think all of these series that have been coming out with their new seasons this last year, they've been having a heyday.
What does that mean, a heyday?
If you have a heyday, it's like you have a lot of success, right? So basically all of these series, since everyone's like home anyway, they've been able probably to get most of their viewership back.
Definitely. And maybe ones that people wouldn't normally watch have been a lot more successful because everyone's watching more TV.
Exactly. They're probably the only ones that wanted the quarantine to last a little bit longer. So maybe I can suggest to you one now off of my list. So maybe you've actually seen part of this. It's the most recent one that I watched, and it's called The Queen's Gambit. If you haven't heard of it, maybe you've been living under a rock, because I feel like everyone is talking about this series. But one of the things that I found really amazing is that I thought it would be overrated, but it totally was not. And I wasn't at all attracted to this at first because it's about chess. And I think chess sounds like about the most boring thing that you could like watch a series about, but it's absolutely fascinating because you're watching basically a girl who's a prodigy. What's a prodigy, Andrea?
She has a special gift in playing chess.
Mm-hmm. So you could be a prodigy of anything, right? Like
Yeah.
I don't know. There's is it Billy Elliot is like the ballet prodigy, or I think there's a lot of stories like this of children who have like a natural gift for something, right?
Exactly, yeah.
So it's this little girl who plays chess better than most adults who have been playing it all their life, and kind of watching her growing up and learning about how to improve her skills to compete against the best people in the world and everything, and how she kind of is traveling around the country and the world to compete. And so it's something that sounded really boring when I first heard about it, but it's absolutely fascinating kind of watching, because it's not so much just about chess, it's more about this girl's journey to kind of growing up and everything, and honing her skills. So I think for anyone that's watching this, maybe it's I think for anyone that likes kind of like learning new skills in something, it gives you a lot of respect for someone's ability to gain a certain level of mastery in something.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've only seen the first episode and I really enjoyed it. And it actually made me want to start playing chess. Like I had never thought about playing or learning how to play chess. But it does sound like, because it's a game of strategy and everything, it does sound quite interesting. And I am curious to maybe try it. But it's definitely one that I'm going to stick with. I'm looking forward to watching. I think there's 6 parts, right?
7,
7.
I believe.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. It goes by really fast, but I also like watching it. It felt like I've been watching it kind of in a good way. It felt like I'd been with it for a long time because the story is so encompassing and everything that I think I binged it in one weekend, and it felt like I'd been, watching it for much longer.
Oh, wow. What you used a really good expression there. You said you were did you say encompassed?
Yeah, like maybe it's all encompassing. Like it's something that's all encompassing, kind of it covers or contains everything. So in that sense, it almost like surrounds your life in a sense that you almost feel like you're in that world. So I think if you're talking about a series or a book or a movie that's all encompassing in that sense, it's kind of like it sucks you into it, really.
That's another good one. Yeah, you get sucked in.
Exactly. So what's the next series that you got sucked into last year, Andrea?
So the next one that I think was really popular that lots of people were waiting for was The Last Dance. And this was a documentary. It was a 10-part documentary. And the annoying thing about it was that I think there was just one episode released each week. So it was kind of one of those that you couldn't binge watch, but you looked forward to watching it the following week. And this is all about the Chicago Bulls and Michael Jordan. And the reason it's called The Last Dance is because I believe the manager termed their kind of like their last season together, this Chicago Bulls dynasty of this group of players that were highly successful. And The Last Dance was a term based on, it probably being their final season playing together, like this incredible team. And so it documents this because I think that's what happened. I think it was in 96, 97. And basically the cameras were following them. So it takes this as well as lots of other footage from Michael Jordan, and then also interviewing the players, all the people involved, the staff for the team, and they are asked questions about the events that happened now. So it's really good to see their take on it as well. And it's great. If you're a basketball fan, then it's amazing because you've probably known about this. I didn't know that much about it. Like, obviously, I know who Michael Jordan is. I knew that he was a superstar and that he changed the Chicago Bulls and there was this amazing team that he played with. But for me, I found it so inspiring and so interesting to learn about their work ethic and what they achieved. So it's definitely a really inspiring one.
Definitely. It sounds a little bit like the Queen's Gambit too, in the sense that even if you don't like chess, it's one that you'd really like. And I haven't seen The Last Dance, but from what I've heard from a lot of people who aren't really basketball fans, that they still were also like sucked into it.
Definitely. I think that's what happened with me as well. It was fascinating, really inspiring, and I highly recommend it. We did make a lesson with The Last Dance actually as well. So if you haven't seen that, you can check it out. You'll learn lots of different basketball terms, amongst other things as well.
Totally. So this reminds me of one on my list, not that it has anything to do with it, but the name is The Last Kingdom, was another one of my favorites that I watched last year. And it was, I think there's 4 seasons of it already, so I hadn't seen it at all. And actually it was my mom who recommended it to me. And I believe I also like binged on that one over several weeks because it's a lot of episodes and everything. But what I really loved about this one is it's, in a sense, kind of like we were talking about with The Crown, just kind of like the history of the United Kingdom, I guess, of the British Islands, because it's about when the Vikings come and like take over from the people who were living there then, and kind of about a king who's trying to unify England against the Vikings. So it's a much further back history, which I didn't really know anything about. I don't know how accurate it actually is, but I find it like extremely fascinating, kind of seeing the Vikings and the different people who are living in Britain and everything, and this kind of story of them trying to like fight and everything. I think anyone who really likes Game of Thrones, it's a little bit, it doesn't have like the fantasy aspects, like there's no dragons or anything like that, but it has like all these different kind of people who are trying to grab power and everything, and it's really interesting seeing the relationships between them.
Yeah, that's definitely one on my to watch list because that sounds really interesting. I like more historical series as well, so definitely one to watch for me.
And I think it's a pretty easy one to understand, both the English in it, and the main character is actually, he's a kid who is British, but his family's killed and he's raised by the Vikings. And so his way of speaking, I think, is really easy to understand because he kind of speaks, I think, with this probably Scandinavian accent, I suppose, is what they would be using. So I think it would almost be like listening to a non-native speaker in some sense. So that can be another really great reason to watch it.
Nice. That sounds interesting. So I think we might have to kind of go through the ones that are left on our list a little bit faster so that we can get through them all, right?
We'll do a lightning round, right, of series.
So the next one that I probably binge watched a bit as well was Curb Your Enthusiasm, because there was a new season. I think it was season 10, and this is a comedy. It's absolutely hilarious. It stars Larry David, basically kind of playing himself, slightly fictionalized version, so it is exaggerated. But what I love about it is how he takes like really simple things that maybe we think about, for example, cutting in a line, and a whole episode is not based on this, but it comes around, so it's kind of like comes full circle. So I remember one, it's called like the chat and cut, where someone comes and chats to someone that's in a line or in a queue and starts chatting to them, and you might see them and you'd be like, oh, look at them, look at what they're doing, they're cutting in line by chatting to that person. But what Larry David does is he will actually say something to that person. So whereas we'll all keep quiet, he'll be like, I know what you're doing the chat and cut, and this, it's just so hilarious. I love it. And there's so many things like this, and it's a really good quick one to watch. It's fun. You don't have to think about it. And I highly recommend it. You'll learn a lot of humor as well, because he has a kind of distinct kind of humor. So it's a good one for learning more about culture as well and things like that.
Yeah. Larry David's absolutely brilliant. If anyone knows the series Seinfeld, which was one of the most popular comedy series of all time in the US, I'm actually like rewatching that one now. So it's another absolutely fantastic one for learning about American culture. But Larry David was the producer of it, and he actually based a character in that series off himself as well. So it's kind of a similar sort of humor. So if you like Curb Your Enthusiasm, that could be another really great one to check out, even though it's a bit older. The next one I have on my list is a comedy for people who like animation. It's called Big Mouth, and it's basically focused on puberty, on that like really awkward time of life when you're in high school, at least in the United States, and you're kind of going through the changes that one goes through, and it's kind of dealing with different situations like that, which makes it absolutely hilarious. But of course, like based on that subject, there's a lot of things about sex and things like this that might not be for everyone. So if you're looking for something more sensitive, then you might want something else on this list.
Cool. I haven't seen that one, but it's definitely, it sounds interesting as well if it's animated.
It makes my sides hurt every time I watch
Oh,
it, because
wow.
it's just like I laugh so much. Yeah.
So moving on from comedies, the next one on my list is The Haunting of Hill House. And this was recommended by my sister-in-law. And I was like, not really my thing. I'm not sure about it, but it's actually really good. It's not super scary. So like I wouldn't worry about it if you're nervous to watch it for that reason.
You could sleep okay at night after watching.
Okay, if you're scared of ghosts, maybe don't watch it because then maybe you won't sleep well. But it's actually a really good story. And it was like, we really enjoyed watching it. The cast is excellent. This is a story about this family and how their lives are affected by what happens when they move to this house. So it moves through present day to their experience when they were kids. So it's really interesting. And I highly recommend it for anyone that's not too afraid of ghosts. Like it's not one of those like really scary kind of ghost series. It's more about the story of the family.
It sounds like a good one. I'm not into horror series or movies, so I'm not sure that I would watch that one, but for people who are into that, it's definitely nice to have one of those on today's list. Moving on, I guess we each just have a couple more. One of the ones that I really enjoyed was the second season of The Boys from Amazon Prime, which is, if you like superhero movies or superhero series, I think it's a really great one because it almost is kind of like satirical with this whole superhero genre, because it kind of takes like, if superheroes were really real and someone was kind of like using it as to build a business around. So there's kind of like a really probably the biggest business in the world that's kind of like exploiting these superheroes and using them for like different marketing things and to make money and everything. And so that makes it like really humorous. And it's kind of about a group, a gang of guys that are going against the superheroes, because the superheroes are actually not doing things that are so great. And so it's them trying to kind of like expose what's really happening. So I think that's one, it's really different as far as like that genre goes, but it's really funny and it also will have you on the edge of your seat.
That one is also on my list. That sounds really interesting. I really want to see that one.
Definitely a lot of series to watch this weekend.
So the last one on my list is The Undoing. And I think this one was on HBO because I'm not sure, but I think it was made in Britain. But it was on a UK satellite channel. So I think that's why it's on HBO. They got the rights. And it stars Nicole Kidman and Hugh Grant, who are two amazing actors anyway. But it's such an incredible story. It has you on the edge of your seat because it's all to do with a murder, basically, and, you know, an affair that he has and how he's involved. And you just don't know what the outcome of it is until the last episode, and there's only 6 episodes, so it's not very long at all. And it was again one that we had to wait for each week. It wasn't just on there so that we could binge watch it, but now you can, and I highly recommend it.
Yeah, that sounds like a great one to binge on the weekend. I actually have that one at the top of my list to watch, so hopefully I'll be watching it soon as well. And I absolutely love Nicole Kidman, and there's some other series that they did a little bit similar recently with her, like Big Little Lies. That was another HBO one, I believe. So if you really like The Undoing, that could be the next one you might want to check out, is Big Little Lies.
Definitely.
So my last one, which I also just finished not too long ago, is The Man in the High Castle. So I don't know if the last season actually ended last year, but it's ended fairly recently. So it's just 4 seasons and that's it. They're not making any new ones, which is, I think, also nice. I like starting series that I know when it's going to have an end and I'm not going to have to like wait. And this one, the premise again is like super interesting because it's about if the Axis powers had won World War II. So if Germany and Japan had been successful over the United Kingdom and the United States and France and the rest of the Allied powers during World War II. And so basically it's like, you know, the United States, it takes place mostly in the United States. And one part, the eastern part, has been basically taken over by the Nazi Reich. And the western part has been taken over by the Japanese Empire. And the central part is called like the neutral zone. And so it's like it's a zone that doesn't really belong to anyone. to either party, and it's kind of like the Wild West in a sense. And so it's kind of, you see the story progressing in these 3 parts, and it wasn't at all really what I was expecting. It was much different than, I mean, there's kind of like a twist, I think, at the end of the first season, and it takes it in a direction that even gets a little bit science fiction-y, but it's just like such a great series. There's another one that'll have you on the edge of your seat, and it's one of those ones that it's, how would you say this? It kind of like blows your mind in some sense, because kind of thinking about how easily history might have changed, given if, the United States had been unsuccessful in creating the atomic bomb, for example. So it's one that if you're looking for something that you'll, also you could kind of like binge and everything, because it's super fascinating, that could be a great one to watch.
I think I'm going to have trouble choosing what to watch first because that one also sounds really interesting. Oh gosh, at least I have the list here so I can always come back to it.
Exactly. You can listen to the podcast again as well.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that's all the ones we have for you here, but we also will be sharing 4 more over on Instagram that we absolutely love. So I think I have a drama and a comedy, and Andrea has, I'm not actually sure what genres would you say those 2 are?
A comedy, and then the other one is kind of a comedy drama.
Fantastic. I've heard those called also a dramedy.
Oh,
you ever heard that term?
Yeah, I have. Yeah. It's a bit of a mix.
So there you go. So if you want even more series, then head over to our Instagram at reallife.english. And also, we have a couple of lessons on our Learning with TV series channel, which if you're watching on YouTube, we can link up at the top and down in the description below. And we have one that's on like the top 10 series. I actually made this list based on the series from that I'd watched in 2019. And so there's maybe a couple from this list that will be repeat, but most of them you won't have heard. And then the top Netflix series, which I think most of them also were not on this list. So you have series galore to choose from to practice your English with. I think if you are in lockdown during all of 2021, you will not end on things to entertain yourself.
For sure. Hopefully that won't happen, but at least during the winter, you'll have lots of things to choose from.
Curl up with a hot cup of tea or hot cocoa and watch a really great series.
Definitely.
So that said, thanks so much for joining us here today, and we'll see you next week on the Real Life English podcast. 1, 2, 3. Yeah.
Don't be a stranger. You can find all the notes like vocabulary, links, and more for this lesson on our blog at reallifeglobal.com. And connect with us and on Instagram at reallife.english for even more fun English recommendations. Do you want to continue your learning and get confident, fluent English? Then I have a couple great recommendations for you. First of all, check out our YouTube channel, Learn English with TV series, where you can have fun learning to understand fast-speaking natives with your favorite movies, series, and more without getting lost, without missing the jokes, and without subtitles. Second, if you like our podcast, then our Real Life Native Immersion course is perfect for you. It is the next best thing to studying abroad in an English-speaking country. Try it for free with our 3-part Power Learning series. Just go to reallifeglobal.com/pod to sign up. Finally, if you are enjoying our podcast, then please assist us in helping more people go beyond the classroom and live their English. You can do this by sending a link to this podcast to a friend, or by leaving us a 5-star review wherever you are listening. We might even shout you out on the podcast. Stay healthy and safe, and I look forward to seeing you next week. Aw, yeah.